Hare Krishna. Well, first of all, it's a very amazing honor to be requested to give Bhagavatam class here in Prabhupada Desh, and thanks to the blessings of all the devotees and all the hosts for the conference and here at Prabhupada Desh. It's been an amazing conference for us, and I hope I can do justice to the verses that we are studying here from the Srimad-Bhagavatam. I'll do my best to speak slowly so that those who are listening in a different language, which I regard as a superpower. Anyone who can converse in a second or multiple languages, I just think is a crazy mystic siddhi, which I do not possess in any way. So I'll try to be respectful and speak appropriately. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 This morning we're reading from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 2, chapter 9, and it's going to be text 35, which is continuing the study of the seed verses of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and this is the third one. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. This next one is a long word. Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv. Praviṣṭāny. Apraviṣṭāni. tathā teṣu teṣu aham yathā mahānti bhūtāni. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv. Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv. Praviṣṭāny apraviṣṭāni. Tathā teṣu teṣvaham. Tathā teṣu teṣvaham. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. Praviṣṭāny praviṣṭāni. Tathā teṣu teṣvaham. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv. Praviṣṭāny apraviṣṭāni. Tathā teṣu teṣvaham. Vaishnavis. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv. Praviṣṭāny apraviṣṭāni. Tathā teṣu teṣvaham. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv. Praviṣṭāny apraviṣṭāni. teṣu, yathā, just as, mahānti, the universal, bhūtāni, elements, bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv, in the minute and gigantic, anu, after, praviṣṭāny, entered, apraviṣṭāny, not entered, tathā, so, teṣu, in them, na, not, teṣu, in them, aham, myself. Translation. O Brahmā, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. Please repeat. O Brahmā, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. It's a long purport, and I'll break it up and speak to the different sections as we read through. The great elements of material creation, namely earth, water, fire, and ether, all enter into the body of all manifested entities, the seas, mountains, aquatics, plants, reptiles, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and everyone materially manifested. And at the same time, such elements are differently situated. In the developed stage of consciousness, the human being can study both physiological and physical science. But the basic principles of such sciences are nothing but the material elements and nothing more. The body of the human being and the body of the mountain, as also the bodies of the demigods, including Brahmā, are all of the same ingredients, earth, water, etc. And at the same time, the elements are beyond the body. The elements were created first, and therefore they entered into the bodily construction later. But in both circumstances, they entered the cosmos and also did not enter. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, by His different energies, namely the internal and external, is within everything in the manifested cosmos, and at the same time He is outside of everything, situated in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Loka, as described before. This is very nicely stated in the Brahma Samhita 537 as follows. And I suppose those who know these verses can chant along. There's 3 of them actually in this purport. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratitapis Tabirya Eva Nichirupataya Kalapi Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma Bhuta Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead, Govinda, who by expansion of His internal potency of transcendental existence, knowledge and bliss, enjoys in His own and expanded forms. Simultaneously, He enters into every atom of the creation. The expansion of His plenary parts is also more definitely explained in the same Brahma Samhita 5:35 as follows. Eko pyasho rachayatam jagadanda koti yat shaktirasti jagadanda chayayadanta andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who by one of his plenary portions enters into the existence of every universe and every particle of the atoms, and thus unlimitedly manifests his infinite energy all over the material creation. And we'll take a moment just to comment on this section. What the verse is offering is an analogy. And it's an analogy of the universal elements, how they exist prior to the cosmos, but how they manifest. They enter the cosmos to help manifest everything that is going on within the cosmos. Similarly, Krishna is saying, I exist within everything created, but I also am outside of everything. I exist separately, as these verses in the Brahmā Samhita were explaining. So this is an important topic in Srimad-Bhagavatam, and the Srimad-Bhagavatam, of course, is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And Vedanta Sutra is the summary of all the philosophy of the Upanishads. So this verse is summarizing one of the key issues that the Upanishads are establishing, and that has been established by Vyasadeva in the Vedanta Sutra. And actually it becomes quite a big topic in Vedanta Sutra. In the second pada, in the chapter 2, there is this discussion where Vyasa is refuting the various materialistic ideas that people have about God and about the material universe and its creation. And one of them is the standard old thing, is the physical world just physical? Does physical stuff just come from physical stuff? Is, the universe just from something that is inert, non-conscious? That argument has been going around for thousands of years. And it probably will never stop as long as people wish to deny the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They will continue doing this. So there's various discussions. How can, and for the Vedantists or for the philosophers looking into Vedic ideas, they are kind of questioning, well, if God is spirit, transcendental, then, and matter is this hard stuff, that makes up things, how can the two kind of be reconciled? Initially it seems a sort of dualism. Then you have to say, well, if God is the source of matter, how does that work? And there are various Sankhya philosophers who get really short shrift, as it said. They get chewed up in the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta doesn't seem to be very kind to the Sankhyites. Now, we're not talking about proper Vaishnava Sankhya philosophy in this context. Baladev Vijayabhushan is very clear that what is being referred to is the ideas of the false Kapila, who wrote the Kapila Sutra, which is often quoted as the study on Sankhya, because that's what it focuses on. And that treatise tries to establish that matter can produce matter, and that the cosmos, a manifested form of matter, can come from pradhana, an unmanifested form of matter. And that is the project that occupies all the physicalist philosophers and scientists of today, trying to formulate a theory by which the cosmos, a structured, ordered system, can manifest from something which doesn't have those qualities. It doesn't have any of the properties or qualities that we see manifest of form and activity, and what to speak of consciousness. So that is the project of the physicalist, and the Vedanta deals with it, and basically saying that none of the examples that you try and use, and these examples actually are discussed by Srila Prabhupada in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Adi Lila. Not where the verses of the seed verses are in the Adi Lila, but earlier in the 6th chapter when he's discussing, 6th chapter is about Advaita Charya being the personality of the material energy. And it is explaining there that the material energy is not inert, and because it has no consciousness, no intelligence, Baladev Vijayabhushan seems to, the translation offered for him is that it doesn't have a living brain, therefore it cannot be the source of creation. And you cannot use examples such as a tree spontaneously growing in the ground. That doesn't prove that matter produces new forms. You can't use the example of how water flows. That doesn't. That's not enough to explain the nature of creation. So Baladev Vijayabhushan weaves in all these nice points, and after dealing with Sankhya, he deals with atomism, and atoms are mentioned in this verse, the idea of the paramānu. And we're hearing how Krishna enters into every aspect of the material energy, including the paramānus. So the understanding that we are given is that actually the material energy is a substance which also is Krishna. Krishna is both the remote cause, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the agent, and he is also the material substance of this material world. And the example that is given is like a spider. A spider can emanate a thread, a beautiful silken thread. Now, is that thread the same as the spider or different? Or one and different? Beta, beta. It's a chincha beta. It's inconceivably, that thread is the same as the spider because it came from the spider. It's got nothing else but the spider's body. But it is different from that spider, because with that thread he can create a whole beautiful spider's web for a purpose. So that's an interesting example of how this, and it's given as how the Supreme Lord, through his energies, can expand one of his energies, Brahmā, and there's just this slight transformation of Brahmā as the material energy. It is so subtle. And it's basically that this Brahman is now constituted, instead of Yoga Maya, it's been constituted of Mahamaya, and particularly Mahamaya as the 3 gunas. And initially, when in the first stage of Pradhana, and the 3rd canto, 26th chapter, explains this process, that in this initial stage of Pradhana, the modes of passion and ignorance, rajas and tamas, are absolutely quiet. And all that is prominent, it's a 100% sattva. Whenever there's the interaction of the gunas, they always add up to 100%. It's just a question of the proportions. You know, is it 33, 33, 34, 50, 50, 49, whatever it is. But in the pradhana state, the first state, it is 100% sattva. And that's why it's called Vasudeva state. Because it is as good as Shuddha sattva. So that's the stage of Brahman, or material stuff, that practically is indistinguishable from Brahman manifesting the spiritual world. There's so little difference. And there's the statement that even after the annihilation of the cosmos, when all the forms of the cosmos are wound up back into the pradhana itself does not re-merge into Brahman. It remains. Therefore, it is eternal. It is an eternal manifestation of Krishna's energy. And within the pradhana, when the other modes start to get active, things start happening. And the false ego is manifest. And when the false ego connects or is activated with tamas, then we get the formation of the elements. And that's what this verse is talking about, that the elements are formed within the kind of mahatattva version of the pradhana, the activated version. The elements are formed there as components ready for the material universe. They do not manifest any of the qualities that are mentioned for them in that 26th chapter of the 3rd canto. That's the vyakta stage in that chapter. This, in pradhana, it is the avyakta stage. They are there, potentialities, if you like, and to use a phrase that is very popular amongst physicists. You know, it's almost like fields of potential. Already, the components are starting to be ready. And when false ego mixes with passion, then the next set of potentialities are manifest, the senses. Because the senses are what are going to connect with the elements and their as sense objects. And then when false ego is mixed with sattva, mind is manifest again in this potential state. So now you've got the various components needed to assist the Atma to interact with material energy. That's the purpose. So the components are now ready. The Atma needs, in order to experience material energy, it needs sense objects, it needs the senses to connect with them, and it needs the mind to make sense of everything the senses bring to it, and to prepare a presentation of our existence to us as the Atma. So in one sense, the Atma is into the material world, but again, it's the same thing. We're transcendental to it. We're being facilitated within this material world by a sort of, you could say, practically it's a virtual reality setup, isn't it? It's very, very similar. Yeah. Not a simulation. Simulations are different. This is a virtual reality like a video game, where the coding can produce objects, and it can produce your faculties for connecting with those objects, and it can produce the imagery on the screen that you're experiencing. But you're just sitting there, you know, on your big gaming chair, you know, playing with all this stuff, trying to interact with it. But you're transcendental to all this stuff going on there. So it's a similar sort of setup, the Maya-verse, that is being presented to us. Now I want to talk about these elements, because this is a favorite subject of mine. You know, I reckon, and I did this, when we come to, you know, reading through Bhagavatam and we come to all this Sankhya stuff, we kind of, okay, yes, all right. Get on to the next pastime, get on to the next thing, but talks about bhakti. You know, this is all not important. And it may be more than just not important to you. You may actually find it a bit of a put-off. Because here's Prabhupada talking about the elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. This sounds a little medieval. It's, hasn't ether been refuted by Einstein? That's another story. That's a topic on itself. No, but a lot of devotees like to point out that how these elements represent the various phases or states of matter. Earth seems to represent solids, water, fluidity, liquids. And then we have Agni, which is generally compared to radiant energy or radiant heat, and air, which of course gives us a sense of touch, and that's, gases. And ether, which we talk about either sky, space, and so on. And it's true that the 26th chapter, in describing those elements as they are actually manifest, can be recognized by things which are related to solids, liquids, gases, and so on. But to say that the elements are just, that's what they are, as if that's it, is doing the Bhagavatam a major disservice. These elements are so much more brilliant and far out than that. These elements, actually, now first of all I have to phrase this. When physics tries to analyze the material energy, as Prabhupada was talking about, looking at the physiologists and the physical physicists can look at the world, they're just looking at matter. And indeed, when they are simply trying to model their observations of matter. Physics never tells you what matter is. Please be assured of that. No physicist will tell you that they are telling you what the actuality of matter is. They may break it down. We've got from atoms, we've gone into subatomic particles, we've got the so-called standard model of physics with all these quarks and the different fermions and the bosons, which are energy-carrying particles, all this stuff. And it sounds like it's all explained. And then it's further kind of categorized in terms of quantum field theory and all these sort of things. At no point is that ever describing matter as it is. It's simply talking about properties and functions. What matter seems to be like and what it does. And if you look at the standard model of physics, all those particles are defined entirely according to what properties we want to give them in order to explain what we see them do in terms of their interactions. That's all. It's a modeled system. It's not reality. It's a way of modeling reality, and a model is always good if it's useful and if it somehow or other correlates enough that you can make some progress with it. But it's a model. Now, the Sankhya, we could take it as a model also, but it is a deeper one. When physics looks at the way it is modeling reality in its terms, and it does all the analysis, what disappears is everything connected with our experience. The other day we talked about qualia and showing that our experiences have qualities. And there is nothing in physics that explains the nature of those qualities. It's crazy. So is your physics complete? No. Neither is there anything in physics which explains our ability or faculty of consciousness, that I exist as the experiencing thing. There's nothing in physics. Therefore, it cannot be a complete picture of reality. So, the Bhagavatam its way of modeling the external world is to model it in exact accord with our experiences. Now, which is more valuable for understanding who we are and what we are? You know? So that's how the Bhagavatam, when we look at what is an element, it can be broken down. There's two types of atoms mentioned in the Bhagavatam. And they're sort of related, but devotees sometimes just focus on the one in the 11th chapter of the 3rd canto, where it's described that you can measure time. Instead of thinking about time as how long it takes to go around the globe, how long does it take to pass over an atom? It's a fantastic concept in one sense. And in that concept, it seems that we're dealing with atomism, actually hard little balls. And there is a whole separate theory called Paramanubhad, that belongs to the atomists. Now again, they're not giving the Bhagavatam version, they're trying to give a physicalist version. And that's why Vedanta deals with them very strongly. But in that first verse of the 11th chapter, you'll see one little bit at the end where Prabhupada says, actually, that this atom is the subtle form of time. Remember that statement? Atom is a subtle form of time. What does that mean? Let me try and give you in a few minutes what that indicates. That instead of just thinking very simplistically as, well, everything's just made of little balls. That's the Vaisheshika idea. Then think of matter, the pradhana, the mahatattva, manifesting itself as a field. A field is like a grid. Think of it as a grid. And each point on that grid is the paramanu. And the paramanu in this context is defined as the smallest aspect of material energy that can manifest the qualities of a mahabhuta. So a good way to think of it is like a pixel on your screen. The whole picture is made up of little pixels. And each pixel has 3 bits to it, hasn't it? Red, blue, and green. Similarly to the gunas. And depending on the proportion of those little pixels to those little colors to one another, in the same way, in the proportion of the gunas, you will get a different effect coming from it. So as the gunas manifest within the paramanu, they manifest different effects. And they manifest different effects in 5 different modalities. And that's the brilliant thing about these elements. What they are actually saying is that the 5 modalities of being able to smell, to taste, to feel, to see, to feel rather, and to hear, those are fundamental. Those are fundamental aspects of your experience. They're elemental, aren't they? That way they're elemental. When something is functionally independent like that, it has something unique, then it is elemental. So the elements are 5 elementary modalities of experience. And the next brilliant thing is that then you've got the tanmatras, which are the subtle forms of the sense objects, because they contain the actual qualities that will be manifest within this grid and of this paramanu, which allows it to be tangible to the senses. So each paramanu is kind of like a set of fields of, earth, water, fire, ether, the other way around, from ether, air, fire, water, earth. And each of the contains tanmatras mixed with the modes, therefore manifesting a different quality of sound for you, a different quality of touch, a different quality of sight, taste, and smell. And then the senses come out and gather the tanmatras from these sense objects and bring them back into the mind. And therefore there's a link between the properties of the external world and what you experience. With qualia, it's a big problem. Because if you cannot explain in physical terms what the properties, why red appears red to you, your experience of redness, well, you can't explain it by just the wave thing, because the wavelength of light doesn't have any redness in it. So why is it that we experience that bit of matter as red? You see, physics has no way of explaining why our qualia are the type of qualia they are. They can't explain their existence, and they can't explain their particularity, why they are so specific. Bhagavatam answers that by the use of the tanmatras. That there is a connection between what we experience as qualia internally and what exists externally, inherent within the paramanus, manifesting the mahabhutas. And this is only the start of this physics, which opens up huge opportunities for our analysis. But I want to, in the few minutes that I have, this verse is really talking about Krishna. And I have spent it just talking about the material energy. The whole point is that the subtle form of time, that's the Krishna bit. Kala is that energy of Krishna, which is non-different to him, by which he allows the modes to mix. Because otherwise, if there was no agency or no Kala, everything would be the same, permanently. Nothing would ever change. And that's not what Krishna is trying to provide. So, he has this energy, Kala. Now, when we talk about time, we're usually talking about the passing of time. I'm looking at the clock there, ticking away, and my moments are going. So, but that's how we perceive it. But time is actually the energy of Krishna that allows the mixing of the modes, which then manifests in all the changing things that you see. Things that are forming, things that are sustaining, things that are disintegrating, things that are moving, things that are causing one thing into the next. It's all the effect of Kala on the gunas. And that's Krishna. So Krishna is there, right in the paramanu. Don't think of it as inside, which is he inside the proton or the neutron? No, he's activating the field of the paramanu with Kala, allowing it to manifest. And it's like the pixels. They manifest, bleep, and then go black. And bleep, and black. So, in this way, the whole material energy is coming into existence in just a kshana, a moment. Disappearing. And remanifesting again. Updated from the mahāt, the material substrate. Updated by all our actions and all our intentions and all our karma, fed into the mahāt, manifesting the next moment of reality. And we react to that. And then that gets fed into the mahāt and then remanifest. It's the same way as if I'm dealing with my computer. I'm changing what's happening on the screen. by my inputs, by what I receive. But the screen isn't evolving continuously. It's there, manifesting like that. And when you understand, appreciate this, then you get an appreciation for all the siddhis and how they work. And how those who understand this science, this metaphysical science, can actually use it. They're using this modeling for very practical purposes. They can do incredible things. The Devas are doing it all the time. The Prajapatis manifest species through this system. It's pretty incredible. But let me just, at least in the, I think I meant to finish now. So let me at least read a bit of the end of the purport. So, Brahmāji said to Narad, "Whatever I have spoken to you about the Bhagavatam was explained to me by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I'm advising you to expand these topics nicely so that people may easily understand the mysterious bhakti-yoga by transcendental loving service to the Lord. It is to be noted here that the mystery of bhakti-yoga was disclosed to Brahmāji by the Lord himself. Brahmāji explained the same mystery to Narada, Narada explained it to Vyasa, and Vyasa explained it to Shukadeva Goswami. And that same knowledge is coming down in the unalloyed chain of disciplic succession." Interesting, in this description, Vyasa to Shukadeva, establishing the Bhagavatam. Our parampara will go Vyasa Madhvacharya, who explains the Srimad-Bhagavatam to us, that Shukadeva Goswami had. So there's proper connection. If one, actually, I want to read this. Prabhupada is talking Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochana. He quotes that verse. And he says, "Thus love of Godhead, developed in the heart of the devotee, is a great mystery. Brahmāji previously told Narada that the desires of Brahmāji are never unfulfilled because he is always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor has he any desire in his heart save and except the transcendental service of the Lord. That is the beauty and mystery of the process of bhakti-yoga. As the Lord's desire is infallible because he is a tutor, similarly the desires of the devotees in the transcendental service of the Lord are also a tutor, infallible. This is very difficult, however, for the layman to understand without knowledge of the mystery of devotional service, as it is very difficult to know the potency of touchstone. As touchstone is rarely found, a pure devotee of the Lord is also rarely to be seen, even amongst millions of liberated souls. Kotishapi Mahamune. So we're very fortunate that we have come into the contact of the touchstone of Srila Prabhupada, who is opening up all this knowledge of Vedanta and Srimad-Bhagavatam. How would we ever comprehend anything like this? It's just amazing. And we need to be so grateful. Nutama Prabhu, you were saying yesterday about how is it we're so fortunate to be part of Lord Chaitanya's movement. And part of Lord Chaitanya's movement at the time that Srila Prabhupada has been present. Incredible. Just one last thing, which I think is very nice from this purport. The vision of the devotees is not ordinary. It is purified by the process of devotional service. In other words, as the universal elements are both within and without, similarly the Lord's name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, etc., as they are described in the revealed scriptures, or as performed in the Vaikuntha Lokas, far, far beyond the material cosmic manifestation, are factually being televised in the heart of the devotee. The man with a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand, although by material science one can see things far away by means of television. Factually, the spiritually developed person is able to have the television of the kingdom of God always reflected within his heart. That is the mystery of knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. That's right. Yes, we have. Oh, he is there actually. He's standing there.
One question.
Thank you. Is there any relationship between the core theory and the gunas as cores?
Gunas
As cores?
Quarks. No, do not mix models. That would be my advice. You do not, a model is a model. And I'll give you an Italian example. Perspective drawing. This was created here in Italy, part of the Renaissance. I remember studying it. And in order to do a perspective, you have to look at the building from one vision only. So much that they would actually put their heads in clamps when they were drawing and painting, so that they couldn't change their perspective. So you can never mix perspectives. In the same way you cannot mix models. It's very dangerous. Okay. The physicalist way of breaking it down is looking at particular properties and functions, which in the Bhagavatam also does. It calls them vritti, functions, activities, and lakshana, characteristics or properties. It's the same thing. The Bhagavatam is not saying that this is as it is exactly, because we couldn't it means nothing to us. We need a model. We need a user guide. And the model that is being used is giving you the properties and the functions related to your conscious perception. Whereas physics is giving you the properties and things according to how they're interacting with mass and gravity and things like that. And therefore sometimes devotees try and mix them up, but I think it's a misunderstanding of these verses of what the atom is. We have a far better understanding of the paramanu than material atoms.
Thank you.
Okay, we must stop. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada.